The calibration slate was warm in my hands. That was the first thing I noticed when the proximity alert came through. Not the alert itself, not the 14 contact signatures resolving on the outer boundary array, but the weight of the slate and the specific warmth the engine puts into everything within half a kilometer of the primary housing. I had been holding that warmth so long I had stopped feeling it. The alert made me feel it again. I set the slate on the console and watched the signatures sharpen. 14 vessels. Formation consistent with a colonial-era inheritance survey approach. The old triangular spread, 2-point ships forward, 12 in staggered column. I had read about that formation in the pre-contact archive logs, the ones we kept from the early years, when humanity was still cataloging everything it had found and not yet built. The formation had not been used in known space in approximately 400,000 years. They were old. Even at this distance I could see it in their hull geometry. Long, narrow, angular, in the way that things built before computational fluid dynamics are always angular, designed by engineers working from pure intuition and materials science instead of simulation. The lead vessel's drive signature was a frequency I had only ever read about. Low, resonant, the kind of frequency that travels. I opened a channel on the Soreth band. Every watch station at Sol knew the frequency. We had kept it staffed since year 200. Kelhari Engine Station, to approaching formation. Transmitting colonial band identifier. Please respond in kind. 12 seconds of signal travel, then a voice, translated through the deep archive interpreter we had built specifically for this eventuality, running on a grammar model compiled from the 11 fragments of Soreth communication we recovered in year 60, came back flat and formal. This is the Soreth Inheritance Recovery Authority, Vessel Kereth Reclaiming. We are here under Soreth Property Compact Authority to recover the dormant engine placed on this world's surface 720,000 years ago. Transmit surface coordinates and clear a landing corridor. I picked up the calibration slate. It was a habit. Whenever something large arrived in my life, a technical failure in the secondary junction array, a staffing review from the Continental Grid Authority, my daughter's first message from the outer systems, I found the slate and held it. There was nothing calming about a calibration slate. It was a tool. It had no weight of significance. That was precisely the point. Something with no significance steadied me, while I took the measure of things that had a great deal of it. Kereth Reclaiming, I said. I am transmitting approach authorization for a single vessel only. Please hold your formation at the outer marker. Station Chief Selen Vath will receive your delegation at Kelhari Engine Station, Dock 7. Another 12 seconds. Acknowledged. I set the slate down and called my second to take the board. Then I walked the long corridor to Dock 7, which took 11 minutes even at pace, because the engine station is 220 kilometers of continuous structure, built into and around and from the thing the Soreth left here. And the corridor I walked is one of the original housing galleries. The first humans who came down here ran their hands along these walls, tried to understand the tolerances, failed for 43 years, and then did not fail. The delegation was 4 beings. The fleet commander was a tall, bilaterally symmetrical species. The Soreth, in these bodies, were narrower than I had imagined from the archive fragments, longer in the limb, with a coloration that sat somewhere between silver and ash. He wore rank insignia I recognized from the compact records. The 3 behind him carried documentation cases. Bureaucrats. This was a property claim, not an invasion force. That was almost worse, in a way I had not expected. Commander, I said. Station Chief. His translator worked cleanly. 17,000 years of continuous operation. We had kept it updated. We are here for the engine. I know, I said. Please follow me. I took them to the primary housing gallery. It takes most visitors several seconds to understand what they are looking at when they first enter. The scale of the original Soreth housing is so far beyond what any standard engineering eye expects that the brain rejects it once before accepting it. The commander stopped walking. The engine runs 12 kilometers end to end in its housing gallery. It is lit from within by its own operational output, a deep amber that has not changed frequency in 680,000 years of continuous operation. The walls of the gallery are the original Soreth construction, dense, dark alloy, the molecular structure of which we did not fully characterize until year 12,000. Into those walls, over the following centuries, We had built our own monitoring architecture, junction arrays, power routing conduits, the entire nervous system of a civilization's energy grid, all threaded through and around and into the original housing, like roots through old stone. You could not tell after this many years where the Soreth work ended and ours began. That was the point. The engine, I said, has been in continuous operation since year 800 of the post-contact era. That is approximately 719,200 years of uninterrupted service. The commander did not speak. We woke it in year 43. We did not understand it fully until year 800, but we ran it carefully between those dates, incrementally, at low tolerances, because we had read the Compact's Clause 2, and we understood what continuous indigenous productive use meant under Soreth charter law. I was not gloating. I want to be clear about that. The voice I used in that gallery was the same voice I use when I brief the Continental Grid Authority on maintenance cycles. Level, technical, precise. Clause 2 states that active indigenous productive use of a place technology item, sustained for a period exceeding 300,000 years, constitutes irrevocable transfer of title to the indigenous party. We crossed the 300,000-year threshold approximately 380,000 years ago. The commander looked at the engine, then he looked at me. His face carried something I had no archive data for. The Soreth Compact records did not cover the phenomenology of grief, only the legal framework. But I had lived long enough, and stood in enough rooms with enough people receiving enough difficult news, to recognize what I was seeing. What does it power? He said. Currently, 33 settled systems. We call it the Vath Continuity Grid. That name came from my grandmother's grandmother's grandmother, who ran this station before me, and who thought it should have a name. I paused. We have held this post in my family for 9 generations, not by policy. It simply seemed important to someone, and then to the next someone. He was quiet for a long time. I let him be quiet. There is nothing to say, in a moment like that improves on the silence. He had come for something that no longer existed in the form he remembered. What existed instead was something that his people had built, and then ceased to be, and the thing they built had become, in their absence, the foundation of a civilization they had never imagined, and would not live to fully understand. That is a specific kind of loss. I have read enough history to know it has no name in any language. The operational log, he said finally. I would like to see it. I handed him the output from the archive drive I had queued before leaving the board. 680,000 years of maintenance logs, calibration records, junction reports, output readings, and the continuous indigenous use filings we had submitted to the Soreth Charter Registry every quarter. Without exception, without interruption, since year 104. He held the drive the way I hold the calibration slate. Rated output, he said, reading the cover summary. 410% of design specification. We improved the tolerances, I said. Not in the first 100,000 years. We were careful. After that, we understood it well enough. He looked up. Something had shifted in his face. Not resolved, not gone, but reorganized. He was looking at the engine now, the way an engineer looks at something that surprises them into respect. Where do I countersign? He said. I showed him. He signed. His 3 bureaucrats witnessed. I witnessed. The Soreth Property Compact Dissolution Certificate, 412 years in legal preparation, became effective at 1400 hours station time. He handed the drive back to me before he left. Keep it, I said. We have the original. The dock was quiet after they walked back up the ramp. I stood there until the lead vessel's drive frequency faded off the passive array. That low resonant note, the one that travels. And then I walked back to the board. My second handed me the calibration slate without being asked. I held it for a moment. Then I set it down and went back to work. The engine ran. It had always run. It would run when my grandchildren's grandchildren stood at this board and held this same weight, and when they handed it to whoever came next. We had understood that, in this building, for a very long time.